Danny, I want to thank you for taking the time to come here and do this for the second time, because we did the first time. It was me, you, and Cullen. Mm-hmm. And what happened? I think someone called me or something, and I said, "Oh, I got a few minutes."
I think that was kind of early on, and I think it was sort of an impromptu.
It was impromptu.
Yeah. Actually, you were kind of interviewing Cullen, but I was just there and kind of ad-libbing, so it wasn't a complete interview.
It sure wasn't at all.
But I did watch it again.
You did?
I did watch it.
And what did I didn't? Though I know I found out about your college education. I found out about your company.
Right.
Where were you born? You did tell me, but tell me again. Where were you born?
I was born in Clarksville, Tennessee, and it's kind of a unique city because people think, okay, it's Tennessee, it's down south, but actually, it's right beside Fort Campbell, Kentucky. 101st Screaming Eagles, right? Okay. And so it's a military base. So at my high school, I think
Wait, you were born near the military base?
Yeah, it's like the military base is on the border of Kentucky, but Clarksville is at the top of Kentucky. It's on the border as well. So it's like you're driving in Clarksville and it just melts right into Fort Campbell, Kentucky.
So does that support Fort Campbell?
I mean, a lot of people who are based at Fort Campbell live in Clarksville.
Live in Clarksville, okay.
At my high school, probably like 60 or 70% of the students there were military brats.
Got you.
And so growing up and going to school there, you had people from many different races, people who's maybe a mother who was Korean, mother who's German, and it's just a really eclectic group of people there.
But you grew, so that's where you grew up?
Yeah.
So when you grew up there, how many people in your family?
I have 2 siblings. I have a sister who's 1 year younger than me,
right, and
a brother who's 1 year older than me.
Okay.
And same mother, same father.
Same father.
You
know that's my question.
It's not that generation. It's a generation before where it's a generation before where actually parents did not divorce so much. Or if they did, they didn't remarry so much like they do now. Okay. You know, I'm 50 years old. So
you're 50 now.
I'm 50 now. Yeah, I just turned.
But no one believes that when they
nobody believes me. Now I have to admit today my eyes look red because I had a allergic reaction last night. I started sneezing and eyes turned puffy. So, but I don't drink and I
right. And
but
did you ever drink?
Never.
But why? You have an allergic reaction to alcohol or something?
My father drank. I remember he would have like whiskey or things at home. You know, drink whiskey, watch TV. But I would just smell it, and it just smelled horrible, and I just never been interested in it. I haven't even had a beer or a wine cooler or even a recipe with wine in it. Never.
Maybe that's what you and Cullen have in common.
That's one thing we have in common is we both don't drink at all. I mean, no way. Not even a sip.
But whole life. Do you associate any kind of violence with?
No. Everyone I've ever dated has, except my current wife, she doesn't drink. Everyone I know, my brother drinks, my sister drinks, my mother drinks occasionally, my dad drinks. I'm just the only one who doesn't.
You just didn't have that?
I just never.
What about smoke?
Never in my life. Not even once.
Did your father smoke?
Heavy. My father died from smoking.
Okay.
Yeah, he had emphysema.
Okay.
And he died in 2001.
Did your mother smoke too?
Never.
Okay.
But my sister does.
And your brother doesn't?
My brother will have an occasional cigar. He's one of those guys.
Interesting.
You know, when he's
drinking. And did you ever try to smoke?
Never. Nothing.
Nothing.
Never.
Really
no marijuana, no cigarette, nothing.
Isn't that interesting?
I hated my dad's cigarette smoke growing up.
Well, I did too. That's one reason why.
And I think that turned me off the most. My dad smoked, and my brother and sister, we'd always tell him, stop smoking. We hated when he smoked in the living room, and it just turned me off from an early age. It's funny, I've never been interested in smoking or drinking either one. So everything I say, my mind is clear. I mean, I can never use the excuse.
You never excuse.
No, but sometimes people think I drink because I'm a very energetic person,
and they think
and I'm a fun person, and people think you must be drunk.
You must be drunk, or you're on something, or
just
whatever.
Me, just
They've
me,
done that before. All right, so tell me, growing up, what was it like for you when you were growing up? Like you said, you went to a school that had...
Clarksville, Tennessee is an interesting city because it's like you have the sort of the rural area, sort of countryside area on the outskirts of the city. It's a city of about 100,000 people. But then you have the very sort of progressive thinking people in the military because they're more worldly. They've been more places.
Other places. They have something to compare Clarksville to.
When I say progressive, I mean they're used to living around different people with different cultures, and like interracial marriages and dating were so common you couldn't frown upon it at all. No. Because my neighbor, I remember
everybody knew someone.
I remember when I was a university student, my neighbor was a black guy with a Korean wife. The other neighbor was a white guy with a German wife. Another neighbor was, there was all of these mixtures, and it was a beautiful thing because you didn't really feel any animosity in terms of race growing up.
But your parents were the same way with your father marrying your mother, who's an Indian.
No, my mother is no Indian. My grandmother.
Your grandmother.
My grandmother is Cherokee, but my mother.
Wait, she's not. Well, she has Cherokee in her.
Her
mother. That was her mother.
I think a lot of black people do. Yeah, I think because
that's true.
Historically, a lot of them mixed a lot with the native people. So
Cherokee, you got to do your DNA.
Yes, I know. I think that I would do it. But even in my family, I was telling my wife this. Because she was wondering, she hasn't met my family yet, but we're planning on going back as soon as we get a chance. But you've only been
married for how long?
Just 2 years.
Yeah, 2 years.
Once we got married, COVID hit.
That's right. So
but they've seen her on my Facebook, everything. Okay. But she was just wondering, is it okay? Are they going to accept me? I said, Mona, everyone in my family is married to someone of some different race or some different. I said the only thing is you're the only one from Nepal. Right. But other than that, of course they will accept you. I mean, she doesn't understand how my family is. My family is very open and very accepting.
But blacks in general, basically.
Blacks in general have always been
most receptive to almost
even during segregation.
That's right.
People from different races
always went there first.
It's funny. I was reading a funny, interesting article about war brides during World War II, and it was looking at the difficulties that Japanese brides had coming back to the U.S. and actually. Those who married black servicemen had less or fewer obstacles to deal with because, they weren't going back to a society that restricted them.
Right.
But if they went back to a white society, they were going back to a society that restricted them from entering restaurants and things like that. But, the black community in America has always been very open and receptive to anyone.
Right. What kind of activities did you enjoy when you were a kid?
We played, as a young kid, riding bikes, playing football in the backyard. And by football, I mean American football, basketball, baseball. I mean, the backyards in my neighborhood were as big as, baseball fields.
And were they connected? So
it was
there
like
was no fences?
It was a neighborhood. Yeah, it was a neighborhood, but some had fences, some didn't have fences. When you were taking a shortcut home, you jump fences to come home. But it was in the neighborhood, there were people, many different races there, and it was just a very fun childhood. We didn't have any, we went trick-or-treating without any worry about being poisoned or abducted. We could ride our bikes until late at night. It was just a very peaceful time. I grew up, I was born in 1971, so the prime time was the 80s, Right. The 80s, we were kind of innocent then. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have 24-hour news feeding things into our head that, divided us so much. We might have been divided, but we pretty much watched the same television shows. We listened to mostly the same music.
And people would get together and talk about, did you see this last night?
Exactly. It's so funny how we're so segmented now because of 24-hour news and because the availability of so many channels. But at that time, everyone watched
the same thing.
Like everyone watched The Cosby Show.
That's right.
Everybody watched Full House. It's like
and that would be the topic the next day.
Exactly. And growing up, I listened to pop music and rock music probably until I was 14 years old.
That's right.
That's why when I listen to some of the oldies, Phil Collins and all that, I can sing along with it.
That's
now.
right.
Yeah. And then I started getting into, listening to that's the birth of hip hop.
Right.
And in my childhood, I mean, we did just simple things like that. Nothing. We didn't travel outside of the country.
When was the first time? First let's go through your schooling.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you finished elementary school. You stayed in your town for how long?
Oh, for 22 years or so.
Before you even left?
Before I left and went to Nevada. But
you had never traveled outside?
Never. No.
So you didn't have family trips? That wasn't part of your family thing?
Family trips to my grandmother's house, like an hour away.
An hour away, okay. Yeah. That was your family trip.
Yeah, but one thing I did say, when I was in middle school, I was super active in everything. Like I was the student government, I wrote the school newspaper, I was involved in so many organizations, and to the point that I developed what's called hiatal hernia from stress.
At that age?
Yeah, at that age. Yeah, and then in high school, what happened? My parents divorced, and we moved from my base of friends to another part of town. So it was like I think I kind of lost passion to be involved in so many things. And then
you were involved prior to that?
Prior to that.
Did you know that your parents were going to, was it a surprise to you?
It was kind of a surprise to me. I didn't know what was happening. I knew sometimes they didn't get along, but I didn't.
You didn't expect them to divorce.
No.
So how did that, if you don't mind talking about it. So how did you hear about it? How did it come?
I'm not sure if this is true or if it's just my false memory of this, but I remember my dad calling us into the room and telling us, and I remember us crying.
And you were a teen already?
We were like 12. I was 12. Something like 12, 13, something like that. And we moved, and then we went to, same city, but just a different school. So the high school I went to, I didn't know anyone. I went from, it's funny, the place I'm from in Tennessee, Clarksville, Tennessee, is called St. Bethlehem, of all places. And so I had my core friends in St. Bethlehem, and then I moved and went to another part of town and went to another high school.
Was it pretty much the same kind of integrated families, and everyone was pretty much mixed, or was it more all black?
It was more all black.
Got you.
Yeah.
And that was new for you.
And that was new for me. Right. That was.
And these kids were a little more
street.
Okay, a little more aggressive.
Yeah, a little more.
Yeah. Okay.
So I didn't really.
You knew kid.
It's funny. My sister gelled with them. My sister gelled with them, but I didn't. I didn't hang out with anybody. I was like.
And you kept on asking, what did you say?
I was still listening to WJZM, which was a rock station.
And you couldn't do that.
No, I couldn't do it. My brother didn't either.
They had a black station that you listened to if you lived in their area.
That was WABD.
Oh, there you go.
Anyone from Clarksville
would know that.
Yeah,
that was strictly black.
And then I started listening to WABD a little bit.
If you wanted to be sane or not get beat up on the way home from school.
Exactly. Well, it wasn't that. It wasn't
like that.
It was just more or less different.
Okay.
Different. Yeah.
But don't people in Tennessee have an accent?
Or is that a mistake? Yeah. No.
Did you have one when you first came here?
But the thing about it, it's what I told you. Almost 60 or 70% of people are they're not even from Tennessee.
So you start to pick up their accent.
I don't even know what accent I have. It's like
right. Okay, you spoke.
Yeah. See what happened? Like at my high school, there were so many people from Puerto Rico or different parts of the world or many people, even people black like me, who were not even born in Tennessee. They were born in Germany or born in Korea. The military bases. So even though my family was not military, now my dad was in the military a long time ago. But
what branch?
Army.
Okay.
Yeah, in fact, that's at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, which is why we were there.
Okay.
That's where I met my mom.
Okay.
My mom was a country girl.
That's where your father met your mom?
Yeah, my mom was a country girl from Taylorsville, Mississippi.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So that's where she's from?
Yes.
And you guys never went down to Mississippi?
Always. We always did.
But you said you never left Tennessee.
No, I said I never left the country. The only trip was
from Tennessee to your mother's place in Mississippi.
Right. And to my dad's place.
Which was in Tennessee.
Pulaski, Tennessee.
An hour away.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Pulaski, Tennessee is interesting because I found out later in life it's the home of the new Klan. I never knew that.
I guess that is interesting.
I never knew that growing up because when I went there.
And what's the difference between what's the difference for the new Klan? What do? They don't wear hoods?
I think the new Klan, I don't know. I never really researched that. But the funny thing is when I went there, I never really saw many white people there. So it was.
What?
Yeah, when I went to Pulaski, Tennessee.
Who'd you see?
All black people
Black
everywhere.
people everywhere.
I mean, you see some white people at the stores and things like that,
sure.
but in the neighborhood around where my cousins live, I didn't really see a lot of white people there.
Mm-hmm.
But every white person I met there was so friendly. You know, I never met. Here's the funny thing about the U.S. In Tennessee,
Mm-hmm.
I never met people who I felt were very racist to me or treated me down or looked down on me. Never. There are some really big homes in Clarksville, Tennessee, and in those neighborhoods, and I did have friends who lived there. I just never encountered anyone telling me, you know, it was not the
this, you can't do.
Yeah, it was not the Karen. I never met any Karens.
Well, I think that's a recent phenomenon.
Yeah, that's a recent. But I think it's a recent phenomenon. But I think it's always been.
It's always been there, right?
Yeah.
It's only recent as far as we being able to see it.
Right. Exactly. But I never had that, and not to say that I'm sure because when I went to Pulaski, I'm sure if I look at the demographics, it's not predominantly black. That's probably a result of maybe some slight segregation that has spilled over from the Jim Crow era. Mm-hmm. The reason why everyone I see is black in that particular area. Mm-hmm. But, you know, I'm just saying it seems like a peaceful separation. Like they're happy where they are. And nobody seems to be unhappy with it.
What subjects did you like? Did you gravitate towards?
It's funny, when I was in school, I think I loved geography and history. And still do. I love history.
What about that you?
I like war. You know, I'm a war junkie. On Netflix, anything about World War II or the Vietnam War, especially those two wars, or the Civil War.
Okay.
I just watched a nice series about tyrants and looking at what tyrants shared throughout history. I told Darby, I said, Darby, my friend, you got to watch this. I told him, you got to watch the Vietnam series. You got to watch the World War II series. You got to watch the series on Hitler.
What parts make you feel really interested when you get into it? Let's say
how people lived and how people suffered, what they went through to survive. And I recently watched a movie inspired by a trip I took to Cambodia, and it's on Netflix. It's called First They Killed My Father, and it's about a young girl growing up in Cambodia and how the Khmer Rouge came in and basically sent everyone out to the countryside to become farmers and put them. In Cambodia, 1 out of every 5 or 6 people were killed by Pol Pot. And it's based on the true story of this little girl growing up, and that movies like that inspire me because and I made my wife watch it. You gotta watch this movie because you will appreciate your life so much more if you understand what people struggled through and what they went through.
So it brings you closer to the reality of your mortality. And the fact that, hey,
I want to always feel grateful for and I
this
feel
isn't a dress rehearsal like
exactly.
This is real.
Exactly.
Wow.
But there was another subject I loved, and it was my passion, and that was theater. And so a lot of people.
You were a thespian?
And poetry, and when I was in high school, I did poetry contests. My teacher, high school teacher, was Sally Welch, and she's still on my Facebook today. She's like, she must be 80 years old. She still likes my posts, still watches my stories, and I love her. Every important person in my life, which I'll talk about later, has been a woman who's believed in me. And she, we used to do these competitions, dramatic interpretation, where I would read a text and have to play 2 characters at once, or I read a poem called Porphyria's Lover by Robert Barrett Browning. Yeah.
So what do you mean? You get in the classroom and it just
it's a competition. It's like a competition.
So would she be training you mean?
Yeah, we train and then we go to these competitions, state competitions. I won first place in state competition.
So you're kind of like teacher's pet.
Yeah, for theater. Yeah, in fact, it was so funny because in high school, I would always go to the drama room and she would write me a note to go anywhere. So I would basically just walk around, go by my girlfriend's room, get her out. You know, it was like, but she knew I put in the work after school in the productions.
Wow.
And so I wound up getting a scholarship with that, and with
But how long were you with her?
4 years, the whole 4 years of high school.
The whole 4 years of high school.
So when I changed,
so she picked you out right away.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely. She loved me to death, and I loved her to death. This really unusual,
That's
sort of eccentric lady. She was a local actress as well. And to this day, I just wrote her not long ago. I said, I can't wait to come visit you again. And the last time...
When's the last time you visited her?
Gosh, the last time I went to Tennessee, maybe over 10 years ago. And it's funny, I just went and knocked on her door. I had not seen her in over 10, 20 years. I just knocked on her door. Danny, she remembered me. You know, she never forgot me. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so you did your competitions.
Did competitions. I did theater. I couldn't do a musical. I did a musical. One musical I did, Man of La Mancha.
Okay.
I am a Don Quixote.
Right.
I can't sing a lick.
Okay.
I can't sing a lick. You can see. I can't sing a lick. But I like dramatic acting. I wasn't really a dancer, and I wasn't really a singer.
Okay.
But I loved theater. I loved theater. And then I started getting into literature.
Okay.
And reading and I discovered a writer that she just changed my life and changed.
Who?
Her name is Flannery O'Connor.
Flannery O'Connor.
She's from Georgia, and she's called the Shakespeare of the South. She's an excellent writer. Her characters are these unusual Southern characters. And when I read it, I thought she wasn't religious. I found she was deeply religious. She was Catholic in a very Protestant Georgia South. But her characters always have this revelation that makes them discover who they are and where they are in this world. And I would always read, and I would always wonder, okay, one thing about her stories is something bad is going to happen to some character. So I would always read them, and I was always inspired by the way she wrote. And I think part of the fact that I do consider myself a really good writer of English, is because of her work and her work.
So you do a lot of writing?
Well, I teach writing, so.
Okay, but have you written a book or anything?
I've been part of some books. We did when I was at the University of Nevada, Reno, we did a series on World War II heroes.
Okay. Do you plan on writing a book?
Yes.
Your memoirs?
Yes. I think I could never believe things that have happened to me.
And you haven't started yet?
I've written down some things.
Okay, good start, because I'm doing the same thing.
Oh, you are?
And you're 50. Yes. You're halfway there.
Yeah. I've got to leave
You're
something.
on the other side now.
I've got to leave something behind.
So start those memoirs and get them going, man.
I
and you can record, too.
I watched a funny video. It was called Try Anything for 30 Days. And I think it said, try writing a novel. It said, just for 30 days, sit down and write about 1,500 words a day.
Right.
And you'll have a full-length novel. It might not be good, but you'll have a novel at the end of 30 days. And I think I just need to sit down
and do that.
And do it. Yeah.
Right.
Because my life in Japan, it's funny, saying that I grew up in Tennessee and a lot of my relatives are around the Tennessee area. I was talking with my brother about this. We think that I am probably one of the only people in my whole extended family on my mother's side and my father's side who has ever lived outside of the U.S.
Isn't that interesting?
I don't think
anyone.
Aside from military, there is no one. There have been a few in the military. My niece lived in Italy in different places. She was in the military. My uncle passed away last year. He was in the military. My brother was in the military before he became a lawyer. So he... But no one outside of the military has ever lived outside of the U.S. So I think I'm sort of the black sheep, sort of the unusual person in my family on both sides. I'm the one they don't know so much about because I've been away from the U.S. for so long. I don't go to family gatherings because of that.
Wow.
And so,
So in college, so you got your scholarship to go to college. Did you use that scholarship all the way through?
Yes.
Where'd you go to college?
It's a small school in Tennessee. It's called Austin Peay State University, and it's named after the first governor of Tennessee.
Okay.
And it's funny, this school has a very interesting chant because when they're at the football games, they say, "Let's go P, let's go P," and that's kind of the famous chant.
Okay, right.
Yeah, because it's Austin Peay, P-E-A-Y. No, P-E-A-Y, yeah.
Okay,
P-E-A-Y.
yeah, right.
And so I went to school there. I was going to major in art, but then I decided to major in theater and literature and technical writing as a minor. And Good school. I went, met some great teachers there. The class sizes were small. The nice thing about that school was that all of your professors were doctors. You know, at a lot of schools, you're taught by grad students. At that school, your professors were Dr. James, Dr. Johnson, Dr. Hill.
So it was a small school, so everyone knew everyone, and they knew everything
everybody
was going
knew
on.
Everyone knew everyone, but again, because of the military base,
Oh, it was
people coming, people who were in the military,
studentship.
that's the only close university around, so they would.
Got it. So you had a lot of transits coming.
Yeah.
So you might know this. So you never really felt any real connection to, because you knew they could be leaving tomorrow or whatever.
Yeah.
So what'd you graduate with?
Bachelor's degree.
Okay.
And a BA.
Okay.
And when I finished school, I was looking to maybe, go to grad school. So at that time, my brother had moved to Reno, Nevada. And at that time, I decided to, hey, why don't I go to Nevada and try living there? So I remember driving my car from Clarksville, Tennessee to Reno, Nevada. It took me like 40 hours or more, maybe more. I went there with my brother. We never turned the car off. We drove nonstop from Tennessee to Nevada. And I enrolled at the University of Nevada, Reno, which is the oldest university in Nevada. And I got my master's degree studying literature. Okay. With the idea of maybe becoming a professor, maybe going on to get my PhD. But there was a course where we had to take an ESL related course, because there was a large influx of Spanish-speaking people into Reno, Nevada. They have the tourism, and they needed people who were remotely interested in education to at least have some capability to deal with the influx of non-native speakers. So I had to observe a class. So I observed a class at the university's Intensive English Language Center, and I observed the class of a lady named Deirdre Vineyard, who would be another lady who inspired me so much. I got along great with the students. It's the first time I met Japanese students. Okay. Not the first time, but the first time I really interacted strongly with Japanese students. They loved me. She said, "Can you come back?" And then I would come to her class every day, even though the observation was just one time. I started going back every day. And other teachers in the Intensive English Language Center there would see me and they would say, "Who is that guy in there?" The students seemed to like him a lot, and they invited me to their classes. And then I started going to other schools. Like, I contacted the school system and I asked, can I observe some ESL classes? And I started going to some middle schools. I met a guy named Joe Kuykendall, who had lived in Japan and Korea teaching, and the students, there were different students. They were, students from Mexico and Central America, and they really got along well with me. And I realized I get along well with young people. Okay. And so what the school did was, I was paying for my tuition or getting student loans, which is, I know I'm gonna have to pay that back, and then everything worked out fine for me. I was the walking tutoring center on campus. Every international student would come up to me and ask, "Can you check my paper? I wrote an essay, I wrote a research paper." I would walk, and people I didn't even know would ask me this. I started teaching people on the weekends. Like, there was one lady who worked at one of the casinos in housekeeping from Mexico, and she had a friend and a guy from Mexico, and I started teaching them on the weekend, and the school noticed this, the Intensive English Language Center, and they approached me about would you like to have a TA? I didn't know what TA sounds like something different to me, but
teacher's assistant.
Yeah, I didn't know what one was at the time. Okay. Right. I said, "Sure. What do I do?
What do I do to get one?"
They said, "Well, they have to teach a class 2 times a week." I said, "Okay." I volunteer teaching on the weekend for free. And they said, "You'll get your tuition paid, you'll get your books paid for, and we'll give you a sort of a stipend per month." And I said, "Well, how much?" They said, it was like $1,900.
And you went?
I was like, "Huh? For teaching 2 classes?" So on top of free tuition and books, you're going to pay me to do what I do anyway.
Anyway, for free.
And that kind of got me into where I'm doing what I'm doing now.
Okay. Now, we're going to get to that. So you did that for how long? How long did you do that?
Grad school in the U.S. is about 2 years. So I did that about. I was offered the TA-ship about 3 or 4 months into my time as a grad student.
Mm-hmm.
So.
But every summer you had 3 months to do whatever you wanted, or a month and 2 months and a half.
Right.
You didn't travel during that time?
You know, it's so funny. It didn't even dawn on me to travel
You just
or to
stayed
get a
there. You
passport.
stayed there and saw the students that stayed there too.
I went with my girlfriend. We drove to Canada. We drove to
That was a
Quebec
big trip.
because I had studied French. We drove to Quebec to speak a little French and did. You know, that was
a big trip.
That was the internet. I went with my brother to Juarez, right over the border in Mexico. You know, that was Mexico and Canada were my.
You get away, getting out of America, get out of Central America. There you go.
And you know, you don't need a passport to go to.
That's right. Yeah. Wow. Okay, so then, what got you to Japan? When was the first time you got on that plane?
Yeah. Well, it was funny.
And how old were you?
I was like 27.
27.
Yeah.
That had to be an interesting time.
It was, yeah.
So tell me about it. What happened?
I in grad school, I was dating a young lady. She was Japanese. She was from Yamagata.
Your first Japanese? I mean, your
first Japanese. No, she was my first Japanese
girlfriend.
Right,
Okay.
right. And I was really at the University of Nevada. I was really popular on campus with Japanese students because one thing about me is I don't know why, but people like talking to me, even if they don't know me. I think it's my character. I smile a lot.
Right,
you know, Japanese like people who smile because they don't do it so much, right?
Okay.
So I was friends with so many Japanese people, and I started dating.
Did you start to speak the language at all?
No. Because they didn't come for that purpose.
They didn't come.
They didn't come to speak Japanese, right? They came to speak English, and you know,
they were going to make sure they got their education.
Right.
They weren't going to try to give somebody theirs.
No. Exactly. And I was a graduate student, and her name was Sadi. Actually, Sadi. You got to get the name right. And we dated, and when it's funny, she wanted me to come to Japan, and she wanted me to meet her parents and her family. Not meet her parents. She wanted me to just, meet her family. And I remember knowing nothing about Japan. My image of Japan was, I remember watching videos of when Michael Jackson used to come to Japan and they used to faint, and I just thought of many people with glasses and black hair and uniforms, and I didn't really know anything about Japan.
You don't think much.
I didn't even know what to expect.
Right.
And so I got a ticket, and I was finishing up grad school, and I actually was teaching at the university for like a few months, but I didn't know where I was going with this. So I went and got on a plane, and before I got on the plane, I remember a Japanese person said, "You're going to meet her parents. Oh, you getting married?" I thought, what? And I didn't realize, I don't know if it's still true, but Japanese women taking their boyfriend to meet their parents is very serious, and I didn't know that. And then I didn't know what to expect. Would they like me or whatever? But I got on the plane and I came to Japan.
She was already here.
No, she was there. She was with me because she was a student like me.
So she came with you.
She came with me, right?
Okay.
It was during a winter break.
Okay.
That was 1997. Yeah. And I remember when I arrived in Japan and got on the T-Cat, from Narita.
Right.
I remember just seeing all of these apartment buildings and thinking, do people live in all of these places? It was endless.
Oh,
I'm from Clarksville, Tennessee. The tallest building is probably 3 floors. I mean, three stories, 3 or 4 stories.
And the houses are pretty spaced apart.
Yeah, and they're spaced apart. And the way I described Japan to my dad is you can stand at the front door and jump to the street. So seeing all of these buildings everywhere, it was, do people work and live in all of these buildings? And we went to, of all places, Yamagata, a small city called Nanyo, where no foreigners, I saw one foreigner there. He was a Mormon missionary. And I remember the first place I went to was KFC.
Okay.
And I remember going to the register, ordering something, and how kind the person was, and how the person, like, when I asked for ketchup, he put the ketchup in my hand and kind of cupped my hand. And I felt that was beautiful. The way he did it was so nice. I felt, wow, people here are so kind. And then I got to her house, and I remember the smells were different. Just the atmosphere feeling was different. I felt like this is an exotic adventure. Okay. And she had 2 sisters, and her grandparents lived there.
Sisters?
Yeah.
Okay.
Grandparents lived there, and a mom and dad, and they were school teachers. And so I went there and made every mistake you could possibly make, passing the chopsticks with the food, things
walking
like that.
in there with your shoes on, and
walking in on her aunt with no clothes on, everything. Her aunt who visited. What I was so surprised by was bath time, because they share water. Japanese, they run the water. Right. But I wasn't surprised by that. I was surprised that they let me go first.
Because they shoot the water after you.
Yeah, because I thought, if anything,
I don't know if I'd do that.
Yeah, exactly. You wouldn't do it. Right?
Why would I do that? Yeah.
And I thought, they're just letting me go first, but they're going to drain this water. Right? But they didn't.
They didn't.
They all went after me, and I thought, wow, I'm in there doing God knows what in that water, and everybody's coming in after me, and I thought, Japan's a different country.
Someone's lied to you about the world.
Yeah, and they were so friendly. Her mother took me to her school. And the kids...
Did they speak English?
No.
Then how were you communicating?
Through her.
So she was with you every place you went?
Yeah.
So when your mother,
even when we went to
took
her school,
she'd tell you what was going on. So you had...
They had an assembly for me. They do it every morning anyway. They have an assembly where they...
Right, they do. They teach you. Right.
But then they sang songs for me, and I went to different classrooms. They greeted me with things, gave me gifts, and I came home. Her mother told her dad, everyone loved Danny so much in Japanese, and he was so great. Her dad got jealous. He was a school principal, elementary school principal. So he asked me to come to his school.
Okay.
A few days later, same thing.
Same thing.
And I remember when I was leaving, all the kids started running out of the classrooms, and the teachers let them do it. And they were they were so Japanese, because when they came to the front of the school, the sort of big ginkan area, they did not go beyond that because they had their shoes off, but they lined up, their heads started popping up, boop, 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 waving to me, and her dad's walking with me, and she's walking with me, and we look back, and her dad's smiling, and I think he was thinking, I've got a special guy here. But for me, it was the warmest feeling. Everywhere we went, people were curious about me, and they told me also I was the first foreign person at both schools. They said they never had a foreign visitor at their school.
I can believe it.
And the hospitality of Japanese people was so great. I did not encounter anything bad. Every time we'd meet, like their family doctor, we met them at the grocery store. She invited me to her home. It was like, and it was different from I thought maybe there would be some racism or some.
When people were telling you, I'm sure you asked before you went, and someone said, "Oh, be careful, those Japanese."
Yeah, but I didn't feel any. It was so wonderful, and I stayed there. And at that time, I knew some students who had come to the United States from the school where I currently teach. So I went to that school, which is my current school, NIC International College in Tokyo, and I met the owner. Her name is we call her Hirote-san. And she knew of me through Deirdre, the lady who let me observe her classes at the University of Nevada, Reno. Because here's the catch. The school where I work now, it was started by the University of Nevada, Reno.
Oh, wow.
So I remember the lady asking me, can you come back here and work in 2 weeks? And I said, yes.
But you were just on vacation.
On vacation, yes. But she asked me, could I come back and work? And I went back, I sold everything in a week and moved to Japan.
Well, what about the girl now? Wait, now the big question is, she stayed in Nevada.
She stayed in Nevada. Yeah.
In Nevada.
In Nevada, yeah.
So you were off the hook.
So there we were.
Off the hook.
Kind of.
Okay.
She was in the U.S., Japanese. I'm in Japan, American, and we kept that relationship up. I would fly back every month to see her.
Okay.
The exchange rate was so good. Didn't smoke, didn't drink, didn't go out. So I think I was paying like 50,000 yen a month for tickets to go back, round trip, coach to the U.S. And it was funny, I would fly on Friday night after school, take the 6 o'clock flight, Singapore Airlines, arrive Friday morning, LA, stay until Saturday afternoon, fly back come back here Sunday night. Did that every month for many years.
I mean, did you end up marrying this girl?
No, we broke up a month after she came back to Japan.
How long had it been? You guys were doing? How long was the relationship?
We were together for several years when I was a grad student, and then when I came back to Japan, I was here we did that like 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And then when she came back, we broke up 1 month after that.
So after all of that, you stayed here, or did you go back?
I stayed.
So from the time you came, you had never been back.
From the time I've come here, I'm still at the same school.
How many years have you been? How many years does that make now?
That makes 23.
23 years.
Yeah, 23 years.
When's the longest you've been away from Japan in that 23 years at one time?
1 month.
You've never stayed more than a month outside of Japan.
In fact, it was only 2 years ago when I went to Vietnam with my wife. We stayed. No, it wasn't even a month. We stayed. Yeah, 1 month. It was
so that's a long
probably
time.
like a winter break. You know, in education you get many breaks. You get month-long breaks.
You get 3 months.
Yeah, sometimes going back in December and staying until January. One whole month. Yeah, that's it. But never to live. Never back for a year.
Did you intend to stay?
No.
When did you decide? Wait. So you came here the first time. Did you start those feelings immediately that you never wanted to go back to the
US? I loved Japan from the minute I arrived.
You never thought you'd go back to America?
Never thought I would. No.
Would you think? You thought you'd always stay here?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I knew it. I love Japan so much. And the thing about it is...
So even Mona, so you still planning to stay here indefinitely?
Oh, yeah. She loves it too. She loves it as much as I do. Yeah.
Let's go into what about Japan makes you... I know you love the people. What other things?
It's so funny because I was at I call it my office, which is Starbucks on Keyakizaka. And I was out there and I was talking with Mona about this the other day. I like the fact about Japan, everybody leaves you alone. They don't bother you, you know?
You have your own space.
They don't talk to you unless you talk to them. They don't try to push their ideas on you. They know you're foreign, you're a foreigner, they're Japanese. They don't expect you to be Japanese. That's one thing I like about Japan. They don't expect you to act Japanese. They don't even expect you to think like them in any way. They just expect you to be you. They leave you alone. And I like that peace of mind here. Mm-hmm. You know, it's so wonderful and it's safe. It's predictable. It's everything about Japan. You know, you're never surprised by anything. Mm-hmm. You know, they are exactly what you think they are. Mm-hmm. You know, whatever you expect going to do something, you never have to assume that you're going to encounter some, you know, loose cannon or some unusual situation. Japanese people are Japanese people, and they pretty much respect your privacy and your right to do what you want to do. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that, you know, in the United States, it feels like everyone wants you to conform or fit into some camp. You've got to be in this camp or that camp, and you know, with the politics and everything like that. I just love living here and being anonymous and having peace of mind. I think that's one thing that's kept me young. Mm-hmm, you know, is the fact that I don't have stress living here.
When you go back to the States, well, I'm going to keep this positive because I just came back to the States. I want to come back.
I love the States. I just don't want to live there.
The same here. I feel the same way. I always tell people I love America. It has the best of everything, but it also has the worst of everything.
Yeah.
That's the downside. Yeah. And it's too easy to see the bad side.
Yeah.
It spurts, and even if you're not trying to think about it, it always pops up somehow or another.
Here's the funny thing about the U.S., and some people might not like me saying this, but I haven't encountered any negative people in the U.S. either.
Same here. I said this time when I went back, it was
the ugly things you encounter are online and anonymous. The people, and I've been back to small country we call hick towns. Right. The people there are beautiful. They're wonderful. I don't really encounter any negative people anywhere I go, whether it's England or France or whatever. I encounter the best of, and I think it's kind of like sometimes I feel you're a mirror, you know?
You get what you look for.
Yeah, exactly.
You get exactly.
I have a friend who, you know, he says, oh, Japan is racist and people are, he says this and that. I said, I think racism is everywhere to some extent, and I'd be crazy to say it doesn't exist here but the thing about it with Japan, it's not necessarily, I don't know if you can even call it racism. I think it's more xenophobia. Japanese feel a little standoffish about people who are not Japanese. You know what? It doesn't matter whether you're white, black, Hispanic. If you dress nicely, you're kind, you speak to people politely, and especially when you speak the language, Japanese, they respect you and love you. They don't care what race you are. And so I think that my friend who thinks like that, his outlook of Japan is like that because that's what he's looking for.
Mm-hmm. Do you think you find that in other countries too?
Yeah, because my ex, she got her MBA in Paris, and she's Japanese. She would complain, oh, French people, they're arrogant and they're racist. They don't like Asian people and she would sort of rail on them all the time. But when I went there to France, everybody was really kind and everybody wanted to speak English. It's funny. People say
they won't speak to you in English.
Yeah, they love speaking to me in English.
Were you raised to be very religious?
Yeah. But my dad never went to church.
Okay, what religion?
Protestant, Church of God in Christ. Okay. We say Kajik.
Kajik.
Yeah. Do you know Kajik?
No.
Church of God in Christ. I mean, they're the speaking in tongues, rolling around on the floor. Yeah. Predominantly black church, as you know.
Did you guys have tambourines and that?
Tambourines, yes.
I went to my
fans, hot churches, you know.
And then you put the olive oil in, and then you start.
Yeah.
I refused to be baptized once because my
I was baptized.
I was scared to death.
I was scared to death.
I thought I was gonna flip. I was scared to death. I was gonna lose it.
I was scared to death because at that time I think I was scared of swimming pools and water, like a lot of black people. A lot of black people, they say, are scared of swimming pools. I was one of them.
I don't want to do that.
Yeah, I didn't want to do that.
So tell me, what are your plans for the future here in Japan?
I'm really happy with my school. Right now, I'm a director. We have two main directors of our campus, and we opened another branch in Osaka.
Mm-hmm. The name of your school is what?
It's called NIC International College. And I know some people don't want to say their school or where they work, but I have no qualms about that. I love talking about my school, love promoting my school. Our school is one of the longest surviving schools affiliated with colleges and universities in Japan. I remember when I first came to Japan, I got a book teaching in English, and it was filled with schools that I was going to apply for. None of them exist. And the only reason our school does exist is because it's affiliated with the University of Nevada, Reno, and it's affiliated with schools in Switzerland and England and Australia and Canada. And our students come to our school for 1 year, and then after that they transfer abroad, and we do everything for them. We teach them, we help them with their TOEFLs and IELTS, we help them with their applications going to the various schools, we help them with their visas, and it's a wonderful operation, a wonderful college. And our students they're leaders all over the world. And I love that job. We opened a branch in Osaka 10 years ago. So that's why I go to Osaka like maybe 4 months out of the year. And I'm very content with this. But
you see yourself doing that?
Part of me wants to open my own school. I mean, I know what to do. I know how to make the connections.
So what stops you? What's holding you back?
That's a good question.
Okay.
I think like a lot of people, you become scared to do something, and the fact that I'm married now is probably not good because you know you have someone else to take care of.
Right.
And I think that had I thought to do that before getting married, it would have been easier. You take a risk, it doesn't work. You eat cup noodle for a few months, you get back on your feet, right? But but still, I thought about things I do at my school. Sometimes summer programs, we have students coming in recruiting for the next year. I do absolutely everything. I create the curriculum. I teach the curriculum. I help with the recruiting. I'm doing everything.
You're your own boss.
Right. I'm basically my own boss, right? So I think that's probably the next step for me. I think I mentioned to you before, I'm interested in doing after school study program for students in this area. who are interested in, coming together with people from different countries or different walks of life. Totally not for profit. I just want to do something. The thing about me is I want to do something to just give back and help people. I've done that my whole career. I've done so many things for absolutely no money, for no expectation other than just helping people. And to the point that, I don't even buy anything for myself, I'm always doing something for other people, whether it's my wife or her family or my family or what have you. That's just more important to me.
Wow. Yeah. Danny, what would you like to end with?
I think the thing that has always gotten me through is understanding that, the purpose for being on this earth is giving back and helping people. And that's what I've done my whole career. I've always helped people. And it's not in terms of just giving them money or giving them solid advice, but even just helping them with a problem they're having, listening to them when they need a shoulder to cry on, or just giving some advice about what they can do in terms of education. I'm always giving back. And it makes me really proud to see that now I have thousands of students studying all over the world and working all throughout Japan who tell me later, it's so inspiring, they come back and tell me, you did so much for me, or I miss talking with you, or you changed my life. That to me is more important than being super rich, because that makes me rich, just knowing that I helped other people. And that's what I want to continue to do.
Keep on doing that, Danny. I can see you have that kind of spirit that gives and gives and gives. And all of us are here on our own journey.
Right.
That's the one thing, man. Keep it going.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for doing this.
Okay, sure.
Really
it was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you.
I want to thank all of you for watching this podcast. Remember to press like, subscribe, and never forget, it's all unknown. Continue to reach for the stars, and you're too blessed to be stressed.